We are at a higher level of awareness today than we were the first time we heard it, and it will sound more robust because you have a higher level of awareness than you did the last time. So things will pop up for you. So today we have the most wonderful, our sponsor, one of our two sponsors, um, Stanley Greene. He's president and CEO of Power Thinking Corporation. And let me just cook that banner right while we're here. Yep, there we go. And we're so grateful to Stanley. And you're going to love what he's talking about today because it's avoiding the thinking traps. You know, a lot of times we get into trouble because we think too soon or we're triggered. And this is one thing that you can manage. And so that's what I absolutely love about Power Thinking Corporation with Stanley is that everything's broken down nice and easy for everybody. And today is one of the juiciest subjects. And I will tell you, it is a complete honor to have Stanley here. He's the one who threw his hat over the fence and became a sponsor. He was the first person, and I'll always remember that about him. And since then, we've been good friends and colleagues, I would say. And so that's the purpose here of Mind Over Matter Mondays is for you to hear different teachers articulate similar concepts to determine which resonate with you. You know, that doesn't always happen. Let me fix this. There we go. Thank you, Leisha. I know. Let me just, well, we'll do that in just a second. So we learn through repetition. And there's a phenomenon when you read a book or particularly watch a movie and then you go and watch it again, you are sure that they've added something. In fact, you'd bet your allowance or your coffee fund that this was something new. It isn't. It's the phenomenon of, of autosuggestion and repetition, and that we only hold one thought at a time. So, whatever thought you think the most frequently and how it makes you feel, good or bad, will cause your results. So, this is how you build faith in your ability and your deservability, even if you've screwed up, like we all have. We can go back and do it beautifully, and we're more aware. So, really, failure is how we learn. Of course, we have a label that failure means F, not good. But the truth is, everybody fails and they try again. And the ones who are persistent, stay with it, are the successes because they continue to think of and visualize what the world will be like once this is accepted and internalized by folks. So that's what we're doing here. And today is such a good one. So let me say hello to everybody who's here. Feel free to share this. All you have to do is take the two little or the three little dots at the bottom of the LinkedIn screen, and you can go to view details and you can share this with your community. All right. So Kimberly Lechnick is here. Hi, Kimberly. Kimberly is one of our guest teachers. And her subject is always digging into gratitude. She talks about many things, but her specialty, I think, are keen insights on the power of gratitude. Not just that we know we should do that, but that by doing that, something else happens and you're the cause of it. And it's a very, very good thing. So thank you, Kimberly, for being here. And I see Lay Scheidel is also here. Hey, Lay. Let's see, here she is. She's over on YouTube, and I believe as you move forward, let me just look again. Yeah, she's going to drop the link to YouTube in case you have challenges with LinkedIn. Sometimes it blows you off and it'll come back. I mean, you can get right back, but it can be annoying. So until they figure that out, which I think is a load balancer issue, listen to me, right? I do know just a little bit about that stuff. Enough to know that inadequate load balancing of content can throw you out is too much. It's what Amazon does when they run a sale. They're keenly watching what is coming through those portals. And if one gets jammed up, they change it, the load balancing, and put that stream into a more open channel. So that all this to say that we're always growing and evolving. And, just recently, all of a sudden on LinkedIn, you may have noticed this. All your events disappeared from the events tab. You got everybody else's event that you hooked into. Like if I was streaming Stanley, that would show up. And we went 3 or 4 days scratching our head trying to figure this out. It was just a glitch. They put it back. So before we get ourselves all twisted up in a knot, we need to take a breath and know that the universe has a lesson for us. Is it a lesson in patience? It could be. However, you're feeling when all that was happening is what you want to look at. So let me just say hello again so we can get started here. Let me see. Christy Williams is here. Hi, Christy. So happy that you're here. And um, Christy is the big support on LinkedIn for many, many people. She constantly reposts things, and it seems small and it seems not much, but it is. It's huge when any one of you repost any event that you're involved in or anything that sparks your interest. So, Christy, thank you for that. Mark Thumar. Hi, Mark. He's all the way here from India. I don't know. You having a cup of hot coffee at this time? And then here we go with Lay. She will just go to the comments and grab that link if you can't, if you're having trouble watching. Thank you for doing that, Lay. And Ashif Haji is here. Yes, great start for the last week, the last full week of August. And then we get into September. So we're 2/3 of the way through Q3. Hard to believe, don't you think? Thanks for being here, my friend, for always being here. And here's Nicole Angai Galindo, and she is the owner and founder of Guiding Brilliant Writers Publishing. And she is the sponsor for my Friday show at 11, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern. And that is a different kind of teaching. This is sharing and celebrating the commonalities between all of the guest teachers because each one of us explains it slightly differently. We don't resonate with everybody. Doesn't matter why, but if you feel a resonance, right, you want to acknowledge it. It means that's if you feel it, it's your intuition. If you're emotional about it, it's a trigger. So it's either feeling or reacting. And so the feeling is excellent. Nicole, thanks for being here. I know you're in a busy place. Thanks for always supporting. Here's Linda Meyer. Good morning, Linda. She's one of our guest teachers as well. So is Nicole. And I especially like that all the teachers are supporting the other teachers in the guest teacher community. So we have 20 or 22 teachers, and you can have the floor on a Monday of your choice that's available. So, Linda, thank you so much for being here. Let's see who else here. Leanna is here. Hi, Leanna. Leanna is in Duluth, Minnesota, and she and myself and Nicole and a whole bunch of wonderful people are part of Guiding Brilliant Writers' fourth volume of The Legacy or The Letter to My Family, which will be out likely prior to Thanksgiving, but in time for you to get copies to give as gifts, if that's what you want to do. And Liana takes gorgeous photos. So please follow everybody here. You'll see that she balances our life without realizing it. She is a master professional in the area of diabetes, and she's a registered dietitian. Yet I find that the beautiful photos that she posts, I guess from her backyard, all seasons, kind of give the other half of my brain a rest, right? Or my mind, whatever it is, we need the rest. So thank you for being here, my friend. And let's see who is here next. Usman, Thank you. Oh, I see. Your Kamara from Ozman. Thank you for clarifying that. And thank you so much for being here. I've seen you before, and let us connect, shall we? Here's the most amazing Susan Walsh. Hi, Susan. Susan's in Chapel Hill, and she's a guest teacher, and she's coming up soon. And you're going to love the things she talks about. It is amazing. Thank you for being a guest teacher, Susan, and for your support with for me for as long as I've known you. And gosh, that's been what, 15 years, something like that? I don't know. No. And there's Melanie. Hi, Melanie. Melanie Richards has a live every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's always so fantastic. So please check that out. Um, Melanie, drop the link to your show because I, in this moment, have forgotten the name of it. It's not Rise and Soar, it's your other one. If you would drop the link in the comments, please, for me, since I can't do it myself right now. Thank you, Melanie, and thanks for being here. There's Chorito. Hi, Chorito. Chorito's in the Philippines. So goodness gracious, it must be 11:30, 10:30 at night. It's nighttime there. So thank you for being here. Chorito is a big advocate of this work that we do. We all do it. We're all doing the same work. In a sense, we're providing what we know, what we've studied, and what we've seen over time with positive results, right? We know that that is what, once you see that in from many different peoples, you'll be able to own it and it will embed in your character. You'll notice you don't even think about negative things when you see someone who might not be dressed properly. Your mind instead goes to, I wonder what kind of story it is. What could I do for that person? Rather than the judgmental side. And that's heart centeredness. And that's Kimberly. And there's beautiful Chorito. Absolutely. All right. Let's see. Let's see what we have here. Learning how often my gaming PC runs out of heavy resources, LinkedIn, SAPs. I hear, I hear you. I hear you. Totally hear you. Good morning. Lisa Fevick is here, registered dietitian. And while Lisa focuses on the menopause decades, and I say that with all respect, Lisa, but every time I listen to her Tuesday, every other Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern panel on metamorphosis dialogues, I am so grateful that I'm through it. But the best part is that her advice, particularly in terms of what you're eating, she will caution people in those decades to eat more of this than that, but they're good, viable things to do every day, and she has a newsletter behind it. So I highly recommend that you get in there and get her newsletter. I've made a lot of changes in my life based on what I'm eating, based on Lisa and what she teaches. And there's the wonderful Catherine Chadwick saying hello to all. She is a guest teacher here. My most favorite actress, nurse, and teacher. Maybe my only one, I know, but you're my favorite. Beautiful. Thank you for being here. Hey, Bobby Lee, how are you? Bobby has a 12 noon Eastern on Thursdays, money and mindset. Let's see, I can't think of the exact name of it right now. Anyway, he his partner, they do financial and they do coaching. So their conversations are really pointed to in many instances about our feelings about money, our concerns about abundance. What are the few steps we can do to get really clear on what's next? So I totally appreciate you, Bobby, for being here and the work that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you. I'll give Stanley a chance. You all know him. I just want you to know that I see you and we all see you and who you are for people. And look, when we look at Sharon Rose Winfield, She shares. She is a teacher as well in the Monday slots, and she is our spiritual intelligence teacher. Now, she knows about all the different, but when we get to spirituality, she can explain this to you without woo woo. So I know that woo woo triggers people. So, what we endeavor to do is to teach very simple concepts without triggers, right? Without making assumptions. And Sharon Rose is a master of that. All right, let's see who else we have here. Susan, Susan Walsh, Melanie. Okay, good. Excellent, excellent. All right, well, I think it's time to begin. What do you think? Are you ready, everybody? All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring our wonderful sponsor, excellent teacher, persistent man in terms of making sure you get what you need if you're in a place where you're ready and willing to do the work that is required. So I am welcoming my friend. Hi, Stanley. Oops, we'll turn this off for a second. How are you?
Oh, wonderful, Leslie. So honored to be a guest teacher with you. I watch everybody else, and it's my turn, and I certainly look forward to it. Always look forward to it.
Oh, I'm so glad. And when we do this, as I said earlier, we're actually growing in awareness of our infinite potential all the time. So while you may have heard Stanley speak on any of this, he has a live show Wednesday morning, 7:30 a.m. Eastern, and he has one the same content sometimes at his 9:30 p.m. Eastern live show. And then he speckles the walls with his app for Power Thinking app, which I'll give him a chance to explain. I'm a member of it and I just love it. So, Stanley, before we get going, tell me what it is that compels you to be persistent about sharing Power Thinking Corp, the whole framework. What is it that has you motivated to stay with it and to be consistent no matter what? Tell us.
Sure. Well, thank you, Leslie, and I want to welcome everyone else, and appreciate
Please.
you joining us as well. And to start, Leslie, when you said a little earlier, you appreciate who each person is and who they are for people, and that's been the key for me. Going back to first grade, I was thinking about this really last night
Yeah.
when I guess I was a little ahead of some of the other first graders because I could write my name, and I was helping other people write their names,
Ooh.
because they were struggling. And so I would help them write their names. And I'll never forget Mrs. Winston, who would come to me and scold me. She would point at me and said, "Don't do it again." And I felt so bad. I said, "All I was trying to do was help," you know. And I don't know what had me reflect upon that, because I guess I was thinking about what I do and what I've done throughout my my adult life, uh, whether it is in business, or with coaching, teams with my kids and so forth. It was all about helping folks to grow. And with companies, I think the turning point was working for a big company, which is now Verizon. And they would talk about, there was this one period where they thought, okay, we want to really value our people. And they had this program where they had these singers and dancers come in. It was called Up With People, and it was all about the people, our most important asset. So while they would say that, everything that touched people, how their supervisors communicated with them, you know, to how they were rewarded financially, was counter to what they said. And it was only when I had my opportunity to run a cable TV system, a small system. Now everything is owned by Comcast, and the founder was my friend, Ralph Roberts. But there used to be, small entrepreneurial cable systems with their own names, Suburban Cable and Service Electric, right in all your towns. and I took over one. And so I had all of the departments under one roof, and they were doing horribly. In fact, one customer in a customer letter said, called them the most incompetent company in the world. And my challenge was to change it. And I didn't bring my own people in who thought like me and kind of would come in and clean house, so to speak. I said I want to work with the folks who are here that the customers called incompetent, and let's see if we can turn this around. And we went from number 13, number 11 out of 13 cable systems to number 2 in a year and a half. And that is what proved to me that people have power, and we can take folks who may think they're not up to the task, may not be performing at their highest level, and get them there. And I've been committed ever since. And what I found was, after acquiring the assets associated with resilience and decades of research that created all of this, is that the repetition is important. And that's what I did with my staff. When we would have staff meetings, I'd go over our 5 most important things. One was positive attitude. Another was proactive communications, and so that whole positivity thing was part of what we always wanted to create. And so with this program, with resilience, what we're reinforcing is how people can tap into the power that they have to bounce back from any adversity and to climb to levels that they never thought possible.
I love that. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking about. The teacher who told you not to do that. Isn't she mind reading?
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what she was thinking. That could be my next step, to kind of figure out what she was thinking. But again, that's mind reading. That's a thinking trap.
Got it.
I just did what she told me, watched the other kids struggle, and thought, oh my gosh, we can help them.
Okay.
But
It's
vowed that I wouldn't do. I would always help folks.
I think that's, you know, as we grow and evolve, we look back at those things that we didn't understand. And we know so much now, we can actually understand that something was going on in that person's life, that it isn't really all about us. That when someone says something that we take it personally, likely weren't even thinking about us, right? And so that represents our collection of fears. And so through repetition, it will calm down. You need to hear this a number of times so that you can go from confusion about a concept to clarity, to order, right? That way you'll take action. Most people, and including myself, if I'm still in a state of confusion, I'm not taking a step. I need a little more information to get a little more clear about what's going on here. So we get really excited when we have opportunities and people come out of the woodwork and can you do this and can you do this? I would remind you that to be judicious in what you say yes to on the spot.
Yes,
Because if you take on something that you said yes to that really isn't in your wheelhouse or really isn't your message, when the next opportunity comes to hear your message, you already have that spot taken, right? So you actually traded yourself for something that wasn't focused on what you love. It was focused on what someone else did. And then when someone comes along, they can't get to you. So be judicious. That's what I would say. Don't jump all in. A lot of times all you have to do is say, if you have something and you can't do it, or you even if you don't want to do it, you could say, that time slot is not available now, but if anything changes, may I reach out to you? That is nice and clean. And is there a white lie in there? Well, no. You get to choose exactly what you want to do. You don't owe anybody an explanation
that's
at
right.
all. So I'm just glad that you're here more than anything else. So shall we begin? We're now at 11:30. We're moving into, well, is there anything else that you'd like to say, Stanley?
No, as you were speaking, I was thinking about another situation where we did what people thought was impossible, and that's what we're all about with power thinking. Helping people to achieve what most people think is impossible. So this is the old. Remember the old Palm Pilots?
Oh my gosh, you still have yours?
Yeah, the screen is all busted up, and but I still have it. And at the time, I was into daytimers. If you remember daytimers,
Oh,
the little
yes.
books when you'd write notes, and I had them. I would have a big box, and I have a box for every year. Unfortunately, when we downsized, I said, you know what, I got to part with stuff, and I'm just going to let it go. And I kind of regret that, but because I had notes of everything. But when we created a news channel for the Philadelphia market, which was then taken over by Comcast, when they bought the companies,
Mhm.
um, and they made it what's called CN8 News. We in 13 weeks we went from nothing to creating a channel, a regional channel that had um, anchors in different parts of the state and in Delaware, and we had trucks, microwave trucks, the whole bit. We did it in 13 weeks. And I'll never forget, folks would say to me when we were like maybe a week before launching, "We're not ready. We gotta push it out. We have to push it out." And I said, "We're launching," and we launched. And within 9 months, Comcast said, "Whoa, we have to have this. We don't need to create our own."
Right.
It was called Tri-State Media Network (TSM), and if you ever Google the Comcast network and look at the history, they'll talk about TSM, and I named the company Tri-State Media TSM. So at
Awesome.
the end of the year at our holiday party, the group gave me this, and it said,
Oh,
"Through your leadership," this plaque said, "Through your leadership and guidance, we were able to reach for the stars and achieve what most people thought was impossible." TSM 1999. And that's the kind of thing that we are doing with power thinking, helping people to get unstuck and to reach levels that they didn't think were possible. So
yeah, yeah, and it's through the repetition, which is the first law of learning, which we know, and you're familiar with. Think and Grow Rich, right? That's one of the principles of success, right? Is auto suggestion, and we have to hear it many, many times. If we begin confused, we'll definitely get to clarity, right? As long as we stay persistent, as long as you come to these shows and keep your conscious awareness sharp, right? Especially people that are working from home, right? Maybe you don't get out as much. I do this every Monday with the guest teachers, and then I have something on Friday to send you into the week thinking about something wonderful and positive, and then at the end of the week to regard and face a weekend of pleasure as much as possible. So we know that the positive thinking, actually, mind and thinking is a cellular activity, it's not an organ. So when you feel good, all your cells feel good and you get goosebumps and a spring in your step. Well, you know what the opposite is, right? So which do you choose to dominate or be the dominant force in your mind? It takes time. It actually does take a lot of time. Let me get this. Okay, there's another thing I think that's better here. Let me see if this is the one. No, it's not that one. Okay. Oh, okay, we got that. Oh, goodness. Okay, so let me just, there's a place I want to go right here. Okay, we'll go here for now. All right, this is perfect. All right, here we go, everybody. Questions in the comments, please do that. And here we go. Welcome, Stanley Greene. And for all of you, you notice that I changed the event, but it still looks like the old one. I was a little concerned about making a change, so it needed to be close to the visual capture, and ChatGPT did it for me. So there you go.
wow, nice.
I just sent the old event banner and I instructed it, right? And they even made the circle with your face
Wow,
transparent so that I can drop in whatever teacher is there. So it's a minor change, but it's refreshing.
yeah. It comes up with it itself. It doesn't integrate with Canva or anything, right? It comes up. It creates this. Uh,
Does it, Canva, let's see. No, it comes up with the whole thing. Now,
wow.
when I asked it when it first created was to have no picture where your picture is. That's the only change. So then, I'm trying to think here. I bring it into Canva. That's how I'm able to bring a transparent image of you inside the circle. So now it's a template. But if you looked at it, it would be static like this without a picture of the guest teacher.
Got
So
it.
then all I have to do is drop in, right? Make it in Canva. You can make it transparent or get rid of the background, and
Hmm.
then I just put you right there. Fabulous.
Wow.
All right, here we go. So tell us what we're looking at. Let me explain. Today we're going to be looking at one of the seven skills of resilience. Okay, and this shouldn't be bolded. Um, these are the skills of resilience, and today we're starting with jumping to conclusions. We will not be able to get all eight in there, right? But we're going to start there. So I'm going to let you explain. Wouldn't that be nice? Let me see if I can do this. Yes. So this is the structure for today, that taking things out of the skills of resilience and narrowing it down. And now we're looking at the thinking traps. You see on the left, avoid thinking traps. On the right,
Yeah, and
get.
if you can keep that up, because I want to give the framework.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
go.
yeah, keep that up, Leslie. Thank you.
Sure.
So, Power Thinking was formed to acquire a company called Reflective Learning, LLC. Reflective Learning was a company that was funded by various investors who most of them had inherited dollars from their father, or parents, or grandparents who started major businesses in the Philadelphia area.
Hmm.
One was the descendant of, if you've heard of Smith Kline, GlaxoSmithKline, of the Klein family. There was um, one whose dad, actually a person that sold me the company, the major investor, Joe Hill, his dad, Julian Hill, was on the team that invented nylon, way back in the 30s. So I was very, very fortunate to be able to acquire this company that was funded to take this incredible intellectual property that came out of the University of Pennsylvania's Positive Psychology Center. Many of you may have heard of Dr. Martin Seligman,
Hmm.
who is considered the father of this new branch of psychology called positive psychology, where they're focusing on, moving people from one place to another, and then enhancing and building on the positive as opposed to, the negative. So over decades of research, they actually identified seven strengths that resilient people have. You may be walking around feeling, oh, I have all kinds of challenges. What am I going to do? I'm not feeling good about life right now. And how you can move from that to being optimistic, to always looking at how you can move forward. And so they identified strengths that we don't have here, but I'll summarize, some of them. One is emotion regulation, really important. That ability, no matter what's going on, to stay calm under this incredible pressure. The second, impulse control, and then there's self-efficacy. There's reaching out. So they say, okay, so if resilient people are strong in these areas, how do we take folks who may not be strong and help them get stronger in their ability to stay calm under pressure as opposed to being frazzled, to get stronger in their belief in their ability, that self efficacy, to add value to the world and succeed? How do you do that? Well, they then identified seven skills. And as Leslie knows, I'm a former basketball player at the University of Pennsylvania. And every day after school, unlike students that go to school and then study, we went to school, and then after school we had 2 hours of basketball practicing the same skills every day. And you would think, like, well, they already know how to dribble the basketball. They already know how to stand up at the foul line and shoot a foul shot. Why do you have to keep doing the same thing over and over and over, so that when we get into the game, we're sharp and we go to what they call muscle memory? It's automatic because you've practiced it so much. But we don't do that for our mental well-being. So here are the skills, learning the ABCs. We'll get into the detail around it. The focus today is avoiding the thinking traps. Then there's detecting icebergs, challenging beliefs, putting it in perspective, calming and focusing, real time resilience. You talked about a couple of people, one focus on gratitude. For us, that is number 5, putting it in perspective. And when you're grateful, you tend to put life in perspective. There was another one you talked about where, you said, Leslie, take deep breaths, take deep breaths. That is number 6, calming and focusing. The key skill there and function is taking the deep breaths, things that we know we're supposed to do, but in the moment we don't do it. And that's why we need to practice, so that in the moment, just like with the basketball practice, or if you're playing an instrument, in the moment, you can do that automatically. So we focus today on that skill number 2, and now we can bring up the next
Oh,
screen,
thank you.
which is avoiding thinking traps. And each one of these alone is super powerful in terms of helping us to get stronger in those areas. Some, help us in some of the specific areas than others, like emotion regulation. Certainly, calming and focusing, taking those deep breaths help us there. But avoiding these thinking traps also helps us with, controlling our emotions, because many times when those thoughts are swirling around in our head, remember 50,000 partial thoughts a day, brains are processing. And this skill is all about making us aware of what's swirling around in our heads. I had somebody respond last week to a class email. I'm co-president of my class at Penn, and they responded to an email about something that he felt was a mistake, and he immediately, said, "Well, did you intend to do this?" In his response, in his response to the email, did you intend to do this, or was it a mistake? And number one, I have a co-president. He only sent it to me, so he may have jumped to a conclusion
Mm,
that I did this, either intentionally or that it was a mistake. And so he was challenging me around that. So the automatic, typical response is to come back and, wait a minute, are you accusing me of something? And I had to step back and recognize. So what I recognized is that he was jumping to conclusions that I'm the person that made a mistake, when it was actually my colleague, right? So, um, and this person is an attorney.
so Stanley, let me ask you something here. So what's happening, and correct me if I'm not, if this isn't clear, what it sounds like, that jumping to conclusions has a lot to do with mind reading too. In other words, that conclusion is that it was an attack on me, or it was something nasty about me, or something unkind. Um, and you don't really know why they did it unless you ask. But because we humans are meaning making machines, we're going to throw a meaning on what happened. We have to know why. We have to know why. And due to our own fears, we're going to think that it's about us. But in most instances, Stanley, would you agree it never is about us?
Correct.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and it's so dangerous. And the problem is that, and the challenge that we have with our training is that most people don't realize that they can do much better. They think that this is the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I do make a mistake, but it happens. If I'm triggered, this is the way I respond. It's how I'm wired. It is the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, it doesn't have to be that way. So there are 8 traps, and it's amazing because 50,000 thoughts, 8 traps. There are more, but these are the main ones where we jump to conclusions with no evidence, and we can get really angry about something,
Mm-hmm.
and we have no evidence at all. My partner is cheating on me. Well, where's the evidence? I just feel it. And that speaks to another number 6, emotional reasoning.
Mm.
Well, I'm feeling this way, so there has to be a justification. It must be happening because I'm feeling it. And we could be totally wrong. There's
Yeah.
personalizing, where we tend to beat ourselves up too much. There's externalizing, blaming others. There's number four, minimizing the positive things that are happening in our life, but focusing on and magnifying the negative. And we
And
have
let
a
me just
tendency
say
to
right
do that.
there, with that particular one, minimizing and magnifying, that has to do with that person, right, who does the minimizing and the magnifying, and it's negative and positive. So the that's based on the universal laws, that there's a positive and a negative, and minimizing and magnifying, um, they are not necessarily a positive thing. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Correct. I mean, this is not a positive thing because we overlook the fact that there are positive things happening in our lives, but we tend to focus more on the things that are not going so well. And then, in addition to focusing more on it, we blow them up to make them a major catastrophe. This is really going to negatively impact my whole life. And there are folks walking around that, and when you like this, and when they tell you what the big problem is, you go, and you make me go, wait a minute, this is solvable. Um, how about the other things? I noticed that this happened with you, but they don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about the negative. Um, so that's a big one. And we actually have an exercise that we ask people to do to help them with that minimizing and magnifying thinking trap. And two exercises, and one to the point you mentioned. I think it was Kimberly Lechnick who's the gratitude
Yes,
coach.
that's Kimberly.
Yes. So and Kimberly, she knows that gratitude is very, very powerful, and we recognize that as well. And so, as part of number four, we encourage people when they get up in the morning, write down as many things as possible around what you are grateful for, so that helps to put things in perspective, at the very start of the day. The second exercise we ask them to do is one that psychologists all over the world are telling their clients, and that is the three good things exercise before going to bed at night. And that is not just what you're grateful for, but what actually happened that day that was positive. Because we'll tend to hang on to, how bad the day was because of this situation, or a person cut them off as they were driving down the road, and it just spoiled their whole day, and they're still thinking about it, before going to bed. When it's like, oh, wait a minute, well, why don't you write down at least three good things that happened? Yeah, that was a bad one, um, but there were other things that happened that were positive. You were able to get that proposal out that you've been working on for a few days, and you may have procrastinated on, but you got it done. How about that? Oh, wow, that's right. Yeah, I did do that. You know, how about that call you received from an old friend that you haven't talked to in a while? You kind of felt bad that you haven't reached out, but they reached out to you. That's a good thing, isn't it? Yeah. So we have to remind folks, hey, we have good things happening as well as bad things, but let's focus on those good things, because that can help us to elevate and make the next day more positive. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. So why don't we take a brief moment here, and we're going to come back to this, okay? But I want to honor our sponsors. So here's the first one.
of course.
Look familiar, Stanley?
Oh yeah, I recognize that app.
So Stanley Greene now has taken to the apps where you can have 30 days free of the Power Thinking app, the Corp app, where you'll receive daily affirmations, and you can also join the 2 live shows that Stanley does on Wednesdays. And so I am a member, many of us are members, and anything you'd like to share about this briefly before we move on?
Oh yeah. So this kind of takes me back to the days when in different companies where I created a real positive culture, empowering culture, where people felt that they can make more of a contribution than they did under the other bosses. And it was all about that repetition, in our meetings. Again, we talked about, the 5 things, and I would talk about positivity. One key for us is positive attitude, but we would do that weekly. And our weekly calls was part of this weekly reinforcement. But with the app,
Mhm.
we're able to take advantage of the notifications functions to push positive, notifications, positive messages, either quotes or an affirmation or a mini lesson about, minimizing and magnifying, where we'll point it out and we'll attach like a 60-second video. Everything is about short bursts to disrupt the negative thoughts that are swirling around, and that for some people can actually overcome them and overwhelm them. So
Yes, and
take advantage of it. There's 2 pricing points now, and there's a 7-day free trial for the $9.99 a month, and a 14-day free trial for the annual. If the annual, you're done for the year at only $59.99 a month. Sometimes I wonder why I did that, but it goes back to first grade. I'm trying to be as helpful as I can to everybody and
yeah,
make this as
thanks.
affordable as
You just
possible.
give it all away, Stanley, for nothing, and you just anyway, that I love that. I love that. I got into the app and I was using it. I use it primarily to keep up with the Wednesday show because the Wednesday shows have a video that we explore or the guest may explore. So that takes like 3 minutes, but I love that it's right there. I don't have to dig around on YouTube. So excellent, excellent. Let's see if I can get this moved onto the. No, it always wants to do it twice. There we go. All right, so we're right back to here, but I do want to, uh, let's see, I want to share something. Let's see if I can do this right now. We have another sponsor. So, Stanley,
Oh
bear
yeah,
with me. Oh, yes.
great.
And I'm going to show you what they are up to. And I have
You're
to go
rolling.
to, well, yeah, yeah, we are. Let's see, where is it? Here we go. This is so strange. Hold on, let me bring this off and let me try again. Interesting. Okay, we're not going to do that. I don't understand what's happening with the video files. But I'll tell you what, I think I know what happened, and I think I may be able to fix that. But one thing's for sure, the outro today is for the 2350 Effect and the Work Life Balance Summit that's coming up October 9th and 10th. So thank you for your patience. And there we are. All right, where are we now? We're at 11:50. We've got 10 minutes left. Let's see if we have questions. We've had some wonderful comments. Um, oh, here we go. Thank you, Barb. Here's one for you. Oops, no, this is the one. Sorry. There we go. Can you suggest something to do to get back to a balanced state when your mind is on overload? Great question.
Oh sure. Well, we mentioned it a little earlier, and it's just so amazing how effective it is in the moment. Many times we have things like this happening. We're looking for something special, something new, and the old, and there may be other things that folks may have created, but the old tried and true is always effective. And that is, take those deep breaths. Obviously, if you're off a balance, typically there's some emotion tied to it. You may be a little anxious and fearful of something that may be happening in the future that may not happen, but your thinking is dwelling on this potential event that could be a disaster. It could be anger over some thinking trap that you could have fallen into, where you may have jumped to conclusions about something. And that's, and that these are the kinds of things that take us off balance when we're falling into those traps. And, we have this feeling and we feel that is fact when it isn't. Um, and when these things happen, you go immediately to taking those deep breaths, long, like 6 seconds minimum in. And, if you hold it for as long as you can and
Yeah,
release slowly,
excellent.
you'll, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Even little things, I'll go to it. I feel myself, getting off balance a little bit. I go to the deep breaths and get centered. And then I start to examine those thoughts.
Mhm.
What is it that I'm thinking about? Let's get it. Let's write it down. That has me a little off centered here. Um, and then begin to rationalize. So, what are the chances that this may not be true? Am I overreacting to something that may be bothering me? And so, usually when we're off balance, there's something at the core of it, something that's some emotion, that's taking us off center. But deep
And we,
breath, we don't have to get complicated. You
mhm.
try that first and notice a difference. In fact, as we are speaking, folks, you know, take the deep breath, take 6 seconds, breathe in, hold for as long as you can, and then breathe out. Notice how different you feel and how much better you feel as a result of that. Great
Okay.
question.
Thank you. I had pulled Barb's comment down but to put up another question. But I think that Barb let us know that that helped and that gives you what Stanley is saying is it sounds simple, but you're in charge of your thoughts. So I believe the growth comes when you're willing and ready to look at what you're thinking. Most people, Stanley, are afraid, right? But one of their six basic fears, they can't do it, they're not smart enough. We need money, I'm too old. All of it is real because it's our default. Negativity is our default because we have allowed, without realizing it, our minds and our lives to be inundated with negative thoughts and experiences. So we're kind of an anomaly here of people that don't want that. um, so let's move on to Kimberly. Is there a virtual component to your app or your list of products or services?
I'm wondering Kimberly, what do you mean by a virtual component? Um,
I think she means can we watch live videos, but I don't know. Will you?
well, well,
I don't know.
on the app, you can watch
Right.
the recorded videos if you miss our live sessions. So and you can actually join the session over our conference line through the app. So all if you go back, if you have the app, you can go back many months to the two sessions, the morning session, evening session. You can watch the recording, fast forward, stop, whatever. And the notifications. This is one. I encourage you to binge on the notifications because you go to the notifications section on
Mhm.
the menu, and we have notifications, daily notifications, 2, 3 notifications through the course of the day, an affirmation, a power thinking boost, a positive quote in the morning, a mini lesson, micro lesson, 60 seconds on personal finances,
Mhm.
on, purchasing a home, or investing in mutual funds. All of these things are in the notifications, and you can like you binge on Netflix, you can binge on those notifications.
Mhm.
And so,
Mhm.
yes, I would
Absolutely.
encourage you to
That's
do that.
fantastic. Now we're getting down to the end here. Um, let me just look at one thing here. Okay, so what I would love for you to do, I'm going to turn off the comments. Give us all one thing from what we've talked about today, because usually one step, right? Two steps. What would be the one thing that you would visualize everybody who's here getting? Whatever the most important thing to carry out and to begin practicing every day? What one thing? Golden comb, a golden, I don't know, maybe a golden hat. I don't know. But what would it be? Because this is, you're sending us off into the week with wonderful new information. We need an action step. So, what would you say?
Sure. Well, first of all, it is about awareness.
Okay.
See, folks are moving blindly through their day,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not challenging anything that pops into their head. They're just saying, "Oh, if it pops into my head, there's a good reason why," and chances are it's valid.
Mm-hmm.
And it is number one, recognizing that there are thoughts that are popping into your head. If there's a thought that, hey, I think this person doesn't like you. You may be mind reading. You see a person, they're not smiling, and
Right.
what pops into your head, they don't like you. They're not smiling when they see you, and that would happen with me because I'm kind of a serious person, and so folks would say, "Hey, well, Stan, what happened? Oh, what?" I was just thinking about what I had to do for the day. It didn't have anything to do with you. So it's that recognition, being more aware. And we have labels now. We have these labels for these traps. Did I jump to conclusions? Am I beating myself up too much? Hey, you didn't get this right, and you're being too harsh on yourself. So that is personalizing. When you can pick it up, being more aware. I'm blaming other folks. I'm minimizing the positive, magnifying. These thinking traps are absolutely powerful, discovered by one of the fathers of what is now recognized as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. Look him up, Dr. Aaron Beck. It was in the 60s that he came up with this breakthrough discovery that it is about recognizing these thinking traps.
And you've done a beautiful job. And I'm so grateful that you were able to fit this into your calendar. And
Oh,
I,
of course.
I, like everybody else, wants to hear from you again. There's so much that you can share. I personally recommend the app. Give it a whirl for a week or 2 weeks. Right? Um, it's it can turn into something else, but we begin with at least download it for yourself and use it and see what you think. Stanley, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to move you into the studio, and I'm deeply grateful to
Yeah,
you
and
for
Leslie, make sure you put your referral code and the link in the comments because folks, you can actually get paid, by referring it to other people. That's the other
well,
thing
you'll
that
have to
we
tell
we're
me how to
doing.
do that. I mean, I'm not well, another time because we're sitting right on 12 noon, but
Yeah,
I'll
we'll
figure
do it.
that out because I think I knew one time. Anyway, have a phenomenal week, Stanley, and just know that
You
you've
too,
touched
Leslie.
every person that is here. So
That's the
thank you.
goal. Thank you.
Yeah. Bye. All right, everyone. Well, let's take a quick look. If I could get this up here. There we go. Um, well, that isn't exactly what I had planned, but I think I can do it here. There we go. A new series has begun in Think and Grow Rich, which is called Thought Mechanics. So it not only is the principles of success and the universal laws and the laws of achievement, but we're also moving into fifth dimension, quantum jumping, metacognition, that next level into the depth, into really that understanding and clarity is available when you're ready and willing. So I'm really excited about what we've been doing here, and absolutely thrilled to have Stanley here. And next week we'll have another wonderful guest teacher. And so with that, we are going to close down, and please stay for the trailer because this is a beautiful, the outro, if you can, and then head over to Shawn Michaels' show really quickly. Thank you all for being here. Reach out if you need me. Those who, no, just reach out if you need me, and have a great day.